I want to pick up a few small comments from the YouTube videos that I've been posting recently, and uh, the lowering taxes. Yes, I think this issue is of interest, but perhaps first, Dubberfat says there is no VAT on schools. There's VAT on private schools. The fact you don't differentiate is concerning. No, one is a subset of the other, and the issue really is that any VAT should be placed on any education at all. And this is I think this crosses quite an interesting line, I'll get to that as well. First of all, the comment about the Bayesian sinking, and indeed the press conference that's just taken place, which was a turgid display of of non-information. But the Bayesian sinking, like the destruction of the Kerch Bridge and the Nord Stream pipeline, raises questions about causality and responsibility. When an event occurs without an immediately identifiable cause, it's natural for people to seek explanations, often gravitating towards conspiracy theories, especially in times of heightened geopolitical tension. The absence of a clear cause doesn't necessarily indicate a conspiracy. Random and tragic events can and do occur without human orchestration. However, given the climate, it is understandable that some people might suspect foul play in all three of those cases. And but even if we suspect foul play, we don't know exactly who was responsible. We can see who benefits, maybe cui bono, but we can't necessarily identify the people behind any sort of foul action. The critical point is not to rush to conclusions without evidence, but nevertheless to look at the evidence. Looking at the evidence isn't necessary to endorse it, but it is to consider it. As doing, trying to form one particular solution, to opt for one particular solution to a problem, which is what happens in social media, leads to misinformation and exacerbates tension and exaggerates simplicity. Simplicity is very rarely the answer. Whether an act of God or a result of human malfeasance, the focus should remain on the evidence and supporting the survivors rather than on speculative narrative. And I think particularly one should think of Mike Lynch's daughter, who was due to go to university. Also, I think it's worth remembering that there is complexity about the legal case. I did a video about this earlier, autonomy, and although there was a legal case and a win for the Mike Lynch side, there was also the shadow of further action, a case which had happened in Britain that perhaps needed to be appealed, and the possibility of other action in the United States. It was far from over, and perhaps celebrating was perhaps premature. In the circumstance, there is irony over that celebration, is there not? As for the debate on VAT on private schools, yes, it's contentious. Those opposed to VAT on education would argue that it undermines the quality of education and reduces parental choice, especially for families that may not be wealthy but may still choose or may still be obliged to look at private education because of the lack of suitable places in the national state system. Others argue that private schools should not be exempt from taxation, particularly when public schools, state schools, are often underfunded and struggling. I shouldn't have used the word public school there, because that is a specific type of private school. Public schools were an invention by the aspiring middle class to provide an educational background for their children without resorting to private tuition. So schools like Rugby, just down the road from where I live, grew up as public schools to provide that service. A lot of state schools, which subsequently developed in the late 19th century and 20th century, were modelled on the curriculum and the ethos of these public schools. Particularly the grammar schools reimagine themselves within the scope of the public school education, which perhaps is foolish. The public schools were very much developed to provide to answer a particular need, that was to provide bureaucrats to manage the East Indian and later the British Raj, and so they were looking towards creating a fully rounded individual who would be very good as part of a team with delegated authority. Hence the rugby, hence the football, hence the various versions of football, and hence the the cricket. And today, a lot of these public schools and independent schools, in general, try to market themselves as superior organs of academic excellence, which they're not. Then they were never set up to be. And the academic performance in these independent schools, particularly in the old public schools, is often second-rate. Certainly second-rate to the old grammar school education, which was specifically targeted and has been honed to produce academic excellence. So, in my experience, many parents send their children to independent schools in the hope that they are going to be getting better academic results at the end, and then they are disappointed when they don't. What they're getting is this fully rounded character, and so those children who don't wish to participate in all the activities on offer, like, for example, games and extracurricular activities, are missing out on that holistic development. That holistic development is also on offer in grammar schools and in state schools to a certain extent, because these are imitating that original structure. And to fail to see that link and to misidentify, particularly the public schools, generally the independent schools, as simply a way of buying a superior exam result, is to misunderstand what they are set up to do and what they continue to do. They haven't changed greatly in the last 50 or 60 years. And putting VAT on any form of education seems to me to be inappropriate. It's the thin end of the wedge. It's a red line which has been crossed. And the claim that, oh, this is not education, this is a business, misunderstands a lot of the impetus towards that educational effort. As long as the private schools are being examined and being held to account by Ofsted, they are providing the same sort of education as state schools, and therefore they should be held to the same standards as state schools financially. And it seems inappropriate to be taxing one form of education and not taxing another form of education. I think taxing any form of education is fundamentally wrong. There are other ways to penalise people who want to send their children to private schools, perhaps. but this is not the way forward, and in the end, it's going to be detrimental to our education. We are already struggling, and destroying one bit of the educational system, which is working relatively well, is not going to help the other bit of the educational system, which is not working well. What we need to do is to bring the whole education system to a better function, and that means we need to revise the way we do education in Britain, and particularly those parents who cannot afford a great deal, but who feel obliged to look into the private education field. They are the ones who are going to be most affected, and they're the ones who are probably going to have to be forced to bring their children back into the state system, and the state system will struggle to accommodate them. Particularly when some of those schools are already underfunded and struggling. If we're to hold all education to a basic standard under Ofsted, the question becomes whether private schools are truly offering something fundamentally different or better, and whether their tax-exempt status is justified. And the fairness of the tax system and the broader impacts on society must be weighed carefully in this debate. We haven't had that debate. We've simply had a knee-jerk reaction. As for the story of Alexander Makievsky and his defection from Ukraine to Russia and his subsequent criticism of President Zelensky in a very spurious video on Russian Telegram, it's indeed suspicious, particularly given the timing and the nature of his claims coming so soon after Ukraine revealed the defection of a Russian soldier called Silva, who bombed his own unit before defecting. The ease with which this story about Makievsky has emerged, combined with the lack of corroborating evidence, suggests that this could be part of a disinformation campaign, rather than a genuine defection. And in an age where information warfare is rampant, the possibility that this is a fabricated or exaggerated story designed to sow discord and undermine trust in Zelensky, particularly as we come to the anniversary of the original Kursk battle, is significant. The context of recent defections, the ongoing war, the broader strategic aims of both Russia and Ukraine must be considered when evaluating the veracity of these Makievsky claims. So the common thread here is the challenge of discerning truth in a complex and often deceptive world, and the obsession with the simple answer. Simplicity is something that we might aim for. Simplicity is the goal, but simplicity is very rarely the reality. Whether dealing with unexplained disasters, the taxation of education, or potentially fabricated defections, it's crucial to approach every issue with a critical eye, to rely on evidence rather than conjecture, but to put out the evidence and the speculation. In each case, the stakes are high, and the consequence of misjudgment can be severe. Therefore, a careful, measured, evidence-based approach, which admits the possibility for mistake, is essential to navigate these challenges effectively. And that I think is the purpose and the value of the comment section under this YouTube feed. It allows for that exchange of information. The idea that one particular information is absolutely right or another particular piece of information absolutely wrong is alien to this search. It's the search, not the solution, and we should be looking at the problem rather than advancing a particular solution.